You are growing increasingly dangerous, chosen ones. Your independence and boldness intimidate them. They were familiar with the version of you that they derided, undervalued, and ignored. The one that used to overextend, shrink, and explain yourself. However, something has changed. Even if you are standing silently now, your presence is more powerful than their loudest words. They rush to act as though nothing has happened. But it's too late. They are betrayed by their anxious looks. They straighten their garments, clear their throats, glance away too soon, and then gaze back. It has nothing to do with conceit. It has nothing to do with ego. Energy, the sort that cannot be borrowed, stolen, or counterfeited, is at issue. The type that compels others to listen, regardless of their desire to do so. Your presence is dominating, not noisy. And what's worst for them, you don't even make an effort. They used to be able to control you with loudness, not with strength or intelligence. They brought instability, manipulation, gaslighting, and passive-aggressive taunts cloaked in pretended compassion into your life. Every exchange was a skillfully constructed game meant to keep you on edge, questioning yourself, and caught in a never-ending loop of proving, defending, and explaining. You have to be reactive for them, because they controlled the story as long as they could drag you into the tempest. They needed you involved. However, something has changed. You no longer play their game. They probe, poke, and attempt to elicit a response, waiting for you to lash out, defend yourself, or let them to drag you into a dispute where they may change your words and reinterpret your facts. You don't respond to them. You don't become frustrated. You don't even recognize them. They are frightened by that quiet. They anticipated rage. They would have favored fury because it still conveys a sense of connection and concern. It provides them with something to twist and control. However, quiet. They have no control over the emptiness of stillness. In an attempt to agitate you, they speak louder. They spread rumors in the hopes that you will hear them. They make up whole tales in their minds, telling themselves that your silence indicates that you are secretly planning, secretly in pain, and secretly wishing you could go back in time. You're not. Your quiet is the presence of something bigger, not empty. Nothing disturbs them more than the fact that you are at ease. They spent so much time making you doubt yourself and questioning every choice you made that they never anticipated the day you would just leave, not with a grand farewell, nor with a last dispute, but simply leaving. No calls, no explanations, no need to clear your name or rectify their lies. And more loud than anything they could ever say is the lack of your enthusiasm. Expecting a message that would never arrive, they check their phones. In the hopes that someone would let them know you miss them, they bring up your name in talks. They wait at locations they believe you would visit again in the hopes of catching a sight of you, reverting to your previous habits. You never do. You've learned to disconnect, something they'll never do. You have nothing left to prove, not because you are spiteful or want to exact retribution. The only thing left for them to confront is themselves if you don't fuel their fantasies. They shout, yell, and whisper into nothingness. Their biggest worry is that. You can see how they are hesitant, stall, overthink, and wait for permission before acting. They are caught in a vicious cycle of worry, masquerading as preparation, crippled by their own uncertainties. They assure themselves that they are exercising caution, weighing our alternatives, they tell themselves. However, what is the reality? They're scared of failing. Then there is you, making decisions, moving, and selecting without hesitation, without waiting for approval, and without considering the opinions of others. They're confused by your assurance. They assume you must have inside knowledge, secret information, or some other hidden advantage. They whisper to each other, "How did they know? How did you know to walk away before the disaster hit? How did you know which opportunity was real and which one was a trap? How did you know who to trust, who to avoid, when to strike, when to wait?" You do, but they don't give it to you. They believed that by keeping you in the dark, they could manipulate your movements. They believed that you required their counsel, their views, and their endorsement. They didn't realize how profound your inner direction was. You move from alignment rather than in response to outside sounds. As they fumble, questioning every choice they make, you move on without turning around. They consider it to be conceit. They refer to it as luck. They are aware of the reality, though, which is that you are hearing something they are unable to hear. In an attempt to divert you, they try to undermine you. They propagate rumors in an effort to undermine your self-esteem. In the hopes that you may trip and fall, they put impediments in your way. However, nothing works since their acceptance is not the source of your strength. Their expectations are not the source of it. It is not derived from their beliefs, regulations, or systems. It originates inside. Thus, you forge your own route while they pause, waiting for someone else to choose their destiny. You act, they speak. You construct while they wait. You know, they wonder. That's why they're afraid of you. They believed they could take your place. They thought you would always be there, hoping, waiting, and demonstrating your value to be accepted. They treated you like you were nothing and made fun of you. However, nothing has the ability to become everything. They now observe from a distance, from the corners of rooms, where they used to have the ability to degrade you, and from behind screens. They see your transformation. They witness the power that no longer asks for permission, the assurance that never falters. They need it because they see what they lost, not because they care, or because they've changed, but because they can see the light in your eyes that doesn't fade to make them feel better. When they had you, they never appreciated you. They didn't think you would surpass them. You were meant to remain tiny, accessible, and in a position where others could determine your value. However, you didn't. You developed. They need you, but their pride prevents them from admitting it. They look for ways to get back in, but never with regret or apology. Rather, they experiment with superficial comments, informal check-ins, and phony support masquerading as interest. They think that their abrupt recognition would make you feel so gratified that you will throw open the door and welcome them in as if nothing had occurred. However, you do recall, when you most needed them, they disregarded you, as you recall. How they made fun of your difficulties. How, when they believed you wouldn't hear, they murmured about you. You recall the occasions when they had the opportunity to support you, but decided to turn away. Additionally, that memory prevents you from letting them back in, which is a mistake. Because, you know, something has changed. Not only them, you. You no longer look to them for approval. You no longer value their approval. They go crazy about that. They believed they could decide who was important. They believed they were the guardians of your value. However, the roles have now been reversed. They're the ones observing you now. They are desperate for your attention. They require your vitality. They want to believe that they are still important to you. However, they don't. Since you don't pursue, you're not begging. If someone slammed doors in your face, you don't open them for them. What about the irony? The same individuals who formerly made fun of you are now fervently yearning to see you again. However, since you are now your own source, you won't. You see how much they always needed you once you come to terms with the fact that you never needed them. You awoke. You choose to walk away from the game after seeing it for what it was. You undid the cords they used to pull with such ease. They now despise you for being independent, untouchable, and unaffected by their typical ploys. Because all they ever had over you was control. Just control, not respect, love, or true power. And they were left with nothing when you removed it. They attempted to instill guilt in you. You did not respond. They attempted to entice you into a dispute. You said nothing. They attempted to portray you as the bad guy. You allow them to speak. They recognize the one thing they never wanted to acknowledge. They need you more than you ever needed them. Every effort to entice you back in simply made them more irate and desperate. They didn't believe you could survive without them. They never thought you would surpass them in influence, exceed them, or outgrow them. And yet here you are, strong, resilient, and unfazed. They are frightened by that. It's because you've become something they can't control, not because you've hurt them or wanted retribution. Additionally, those who depend on control are afraid of what they can't control. In order to get you back down to a level where they can control you, they whisper, cast shade, and make up new stories. However, none of it is effective, because the only way they can access you is if you delete the strings. Their absence no longer poses a threat to you. They can't use their disapproval to control you anymore. Now that you are aware of your value, they can no longer make you feel unworthy. The worst danger of all is that they lost everything when they were unable to control you. The strength of your absence has surpassed that of your presence, because they took you for granted when you were pursuing them. They treated you like an option, minimized your value, and disregarded your work. They now notice you because you're no longer there, not because you're noisy or demanding. And that lack, it is more powerful than words could ever be. What changed, they wonder? They murmur about how everything seems to be coming together for you. From the shadows, they observe you, unable to comprehend why once closed doors are now opening for you. While you climb, others struggle, not because you're lucky or have an advantage, but because you're not wasting your energy chasing things that are below you. They see you succeeding in spite of their disapproval, lack of connections, and lack of affirmation. It also frightens them, because they secretly believe that you are in need of them. Without their approval, they thought you had no authority. They realize now, though, that you never had to chase. All you had to do was align. Additionally, alignment has no rivals. The right conditions, the right people, and the right chances come your way today because of your enthusiasm, not because you asked for them. And the people who used to disregard you, they scurry. They attempt to reintegrate into your life by claiming to have always been there for you. They make an effort to remind you of your former self in the hopes that you would revert to their ideal of you. However, you don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't pursue. You don't give an explanation. You draw people to you. Furthermore, they will never comprehend it. They feel the burden of their own unrealized potential when they see you. You used to be the same person, standing next to them, going through the same hardships, and coping with the same constraints. But you took action when it was time to change. They didn't. They told themselves that progress was too difficult, too hazardous, and too unknown. So they manufactured excuses, chose comfort, and opted to remain stagnant. They are reminded of what they could have been each time they see you. You are not hated by them. The evidence that they had a choice is something they detest. Your presence compels them to acknowledge that they were the only ones preventing themselves. They might have developed with you. They may have risen, spread, or escaped. However, they didn't. They now watch you, talk about you, and sit in silent hatred, hoping you fail so they may feel justified in being little. However, they are unrelated to your quest. Their resistance to change is not your fault. They will never forgive you for the decision you made to put yourself first. Examine your surroundings. Right now, everything you do is deliberate. Every choice, every limit, every advancement, all of it was constructed with a reason. You now live for freedom rather than survival. No financial shackles, no unhealthy relationships, and no needless noise. There isn't a break in your foundation, so they attempt to disturb you. They discover too late that every weapon they employed against you is no longer effective. Your tranquility is not a coincidence. It's not luck that keeps you stable. This is the result of taking charge, eliminating distractions, eliminating unnecessary weight, and refusing to live up to the expectations of others. They can't even get to you, but they want to shake you. They follow your every step while speaking as though you don't exist. They study your confidence yet accuse you of being conceited. In whispered chats, people inquire about you even if they say they don't care. They watch for evidence that you've failed, looking for any indication that you've reverted to the persona they used to manipulate. However, they always discover strength when they search for weakness. They always find progress when they look for hardship. And it devours them. When they see you standing tall, they feel adoration, which they despise. They detest the fact that their own life seemed little in compared to yours, despite their best efforts to bring you down. Because you are moving while they are speaking, their whispers are meaningless, and they will continue to observe you. You never wanted to get even. You didn't have to. Those that have wronged you, they are disintegrating because of the weight of their own deeds, not because you exposed them or due to your resistance. They broke themselves instead of breaking you, as they had hoped. They will be held accountable for every lie they said, every trap they laid, and every action they took against you. You are unaffected, uplifted, and unconcerned. They observe you from afar, thinking you would retaliate and show empathy for their plight. But that you've moved on? That is the main thing that ruins people, because you are not the reason for their demise. The reason for this is what they did to you. They are now compelled to cope with it. Ordinary was never intended for you. Every effort to make you weaker just made you stronger. Something in you was created by every rejection, betrayal, and quiet conflict. This power is yours. It is not borrowed, transient, or conditional. You were never in ruins, even if they believed you were barely alive and slithering through the rubble of what they had done to you. You are getting up. You are currently unbeaten. They'll continue to observe and wait for evidence that you're still the person they knew, the one they could manipulate, the one who would lose it under duress. However, since you were never intended to be stopped, they will perish waiting. It's not luck. This isn't good fortune on your side. You've always been like this. Allow them to question, to struggle with the weight of their own insignificance, to murmur. There is nothing more for you to prove. They wanted you to fail. They were given front row tickets to your ascent instead. In what ways has this change affected your own life? Share your experience in the space provided here. Tell them that you are untouchable and that their greatest nightmare has already been realized. You have turned into an unstoppable force and an indefinable presence. And when you get up, you see that their attempts to shatter you were only the spark that lit your fire. They failed to realize that every attempt to undermine you strengthened your base. You are the living example of how the universe rewards strength and resiliency rather than fear or weakness. You've learned to persevere despite hardship, to go through the fire and come out on the other side, unharmed. Every challenge and adversity has only served to highlight your inner strength. They keep watching, hoping to get a glimpse of weakness, but they will never get it, because you are no longer bound by their expectations or judgments, nor are you bound by the past, and you now walk with unflinching confidence. They are unable to control what no longer frightens them, and they are unable to touch what they do not comprehend. You've changed your vibe. It is now a shout, a statement of who you are and what you stand for, rather than a whisper or a request for approval. They show their own incapacity to move on, the more they try to drag you back into the circle of uncertainty. While you continue to climb above them, untouchable and unstoppable, they are caught in a vicious cycle that they created for themselves, revolving around their own fears. They are unable to acknowledge the fact that you are the one bringing about change, while they are the ones who are currently at a standstill. You now know that genuine power originates inside you, and that the only person who can hold you back is the one who questions your own abilities. Now that they see that power in you, they are terrified because it embodies all of the things they wish they possessed. You don't need their approval anymore. You're too old for their games. The life they intended for you is no longer yours. Their expectations and their regulations do not apply to you. You are forging your own route according to your own specifications. You keep going on, unconcerned, while they keep trying to re-enter your world in the hopes of finding a place for themselves in your future. You continue to develop, create, and grow because you realize that you have the power to control your own fate. It will never include them. They were never supposed to be together. Let them observe then. Let them ponder. Allow them to rumor. Allow them to try to figure out why you're doing well without their help, approval, or involvement. The fact is straightforward. You will keep rising since you are doing everything alone. They are reminded of what they lost with every action you do today. Additionally, you are getting farther away from them with each step you take. You've become an expert at going forward without turning around, and it is the biggest win in and of itself.